Good morning, YouTube. It's Becky. It's actually afternoon. We're in Niseko and it's just beautiful here. I'm going to turn you around and show you. I've got Emma with me and I've got Otto with me because Otto has been skiing this morning. Emma's got a sore knee, so he's just seeing if she's going to be up for it tomorrow. And what else was I going to say? Oh, it's snowing. I can't believe it. It's snowing. It is so good. I'll turn you around. All right, show.
Don't throw it at me, Otto.
I'm not going to.
Guys, we don't need to have a fight on YouTube. What do you think, Em?
It's good. It's so cool.
So this is our little street. We're going to walk up the street and get some lunch. But I don't know, like it's full on snowing. It's full on. Like, hold on, I'll show you. Like powder. It's just amazing, and like the trees look so Christmassy. Like coming from Australia where I think it's 38 degrees today, next to our house they're constructing something very quietly, and here's our little, this is our little house, or big house for Japan. It's got, look at the snow on the roof. 3 bedrooms has it, and like a living room. It's actually really lovely. So it's pretty cool, hey, what?
Uh-huh.
I love the icicles on the omnibus. Oh. You're going to sit out here and eat your quesadilla?
Uh-huh.
Really? Look at the little food trucks. This one's called the Taj Mahal. So we're just grabbing some food from the food trucks and then we'll try a restaurant tonight, I think. Okay, I'm back. We're still in Niseko. We've only been here, everybody's done 3 days skiing. I've been up the mountain, I've been tobogganing, I've been having snow fights. It is snowing a storm out there. I'm not sure if you can see that. It might have stopped gusting around for a minute, but there's a lot of snow coming down today. So 2 of the kids are on their way back to me from the slopes because they were finding it challenging. Anyway, all that aside to say, I am going to show you, this is my last video for Japan, I'm going to show you what I have stitched while I was here, which is potentially way more of you on this channel than my terrible kind of travel vlogging. But here we go. So first up, we've got some of the blocks I'm doing for a grandmother's flower garden, and I'm going to do the center of that quilt as a traditional flower garden, and then I think I'm going to do some other things around it. So stay tuned to see what I do with that quilt. Now this block came with me on the bike ride we did right at the start of our trip, and it got really wet, so the papers fell out and the glue dissolved and stuff. So it's actually a mixture of EPPing and some hand piecing of this one because the papers were wrecked and I didn't have any with me, and I wanted to get it together before it completely fell apart. So I've done one block by EPP, another block, and then this one is together, but I need to do all the edges. So that's the first project that I'm doing, which is kind of a mix between a traditional, very traditional quilt pattern, grandmother's flower garden, and I'm going to add some different things to mine. I'm working with solids and tiny florals being my absolute favorite. So the next thing I worked on here, I'm just moving that out of the corner of the shot, is a little needle book. Now this is a beautiful kind of ribbon that I found, I think in Osaka I found this one, and I've just edged it. It falls apart if it's not edged properly, and I didn't have much with me. So I edged it with a little bit of linen that I've just stitched down on both ends, and I may put a little button or something like that on them when I get home and have more resources with me. So this exterior of this needle book, I canthus stitched this beautiful piece of pink fabric, wanting this flower for the front of it, But because I didn't cantha stitch through the pattern, it actually ended up really plain on the front, and it kind of threw me for a while. I've added this blue flower on here, which is just a hand embroidered piece that I had with me, and some little French laundry tags. Let me know if you like it. Sometimes when I look at it, I think it's beautiful, and other times I'm a bit like, I don't know. And I just folded over on the top here some linen, which is on the inside cover, and blanket stitched around in a beautiful pink variegated wool that I had from my stitching with me. I actually wish I'd done that in a bolder colour, and I might go back and do that later. So we turn her over. And on the inside, I used this beautiful linen from a French tea towel, and I made a little pocket over here and just did a little embellishment of it, and then also wrapped it round to the front there with some stitching on it, just for some interest. And on the back, it's got that stripe and an initial, and the cantha stitching was just done on the exterior. It doesn't come through to the interior. Then I've used this beautiful applique doily. It's really old, it's really faded. And I just wanted to leave that as it was. It was just super beautiful. And I've stitched it with Metla thread, like kind of hidden stitches along here, to the cream wool felt, or felted wool from Sue Spargo. And then I did some extra stitches just going through the felted wool, not coming through to the front, just to add some interest on this page. And this will be a needle page. So you've got, you can tuck a project in there, needle page. And then I've used this bit of a tea towel I found at the Wickham flea markets that are in Newcastle. And I had half a doily. And I decided I'd make a pocket that would keep things in it potentially just by folding it over and blanket stitching along the top here. So that's a different pocket to how I have usually constructed. I'd normally fold over, but I was working with a limited supply of textiles. And then I just stitched down here, which is actually a little bit wonky on the back because there's some movement in the fabric. And the reason I just did that is because it's got a beautiful edge on it already, because that was a tea towel. Now this fabric just is absolutely stunning to me. That pocket comes all the way through to the back, and it's the same on this side. So there's another pocket to tuck things in over here. So this needle book would be fantastic if you were EPPing, because you could put your shapes in here or hand piecing. More supplies in the front, your needles, little scissors could pop in, any of those. If I might actually put like a little tie on here that I could tie scissors to, or snips, and then you can carry your whole project in this one thing. It's kind of like a horsewhip needle book, kind of. So next I have just a piece of felted wool from Sue Spargo in parchment colour. I have done, let me try and get that to focus for you, a little stitch here which looks like that on the front and this on the back. And on the other side of that I have blanket stitched around just for, some variation. And in the centre I had this lovely linen and crochet sandwich tray doily, but it was too long for my needlebook. So what I did was I folded it over in the middle. So it's got this little pocket, and you could actually probably put your snips in there, and maybe I'll put a tie there and could tie them in so they don't fall out. That's probably a very clever idea, which I absolutely thought of before making this video. Anyway, I've just done some similar stitching with that hot pink silk thread that I love and am nearly out of. And then just because it was a plain doily, I added on this beautiful embroidered floral bit that I had with me. So this is a simpler needle book. I really love the interior of it. I'm very happy with this. I might add on that little tie for the scissors. I'm still not certain about the exterior. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know when you've been looking at something too long and you have no idea if it's good or not? So the next thing I have with me is just this tiny little coaster that I have made. And I made that at the beautiful Shishiko Lab in Kyoto. I did a little class and I loved making it. I loved being there. I loved getting to do a little creative project on this family holiday. And looks like so on the back. I'm really enamored with it. I've also bought a few bits and pieces of Shishiko threads and fabric and all sorts of things so that I can do some more of this at home. I really like it. It was fun. So watch this space for that. So when I was in Osaka, I found this cheetah fabric here, which I adore. Now I have ordered this for the shop and it's actually arrived in the shop in this colorway and a pink colorway. And I put this together. The tie here I've just used, actually I might have to take it off camera because I've only got one hand. Just a little bit of the embroidery floss that I had around a vintage button I had with me. And I've cross-hatched it with a brown thread and I love it. And I think I'm just going to put together a really simple postcard project to make this with the complete kit. I bought some of the lining fabric here to take home. I've got lots of vintage buttons myself. And it would be something that you could put together entirely by hand with a little guide of how to do it. So I think I'm going to do that. And that's why I haven't released the fabrics yet online, because I'm just going to see how many kits I'm going to make up. I'm going to open it up and show you the inside. So the inside looks like so. It's, you could do all sorts of things with it. I had some quilt batting with me, which gave it a bit of extra weight. I like the weight of it. It will, you could use it as a clutch, but I actually thought of it as a kind of a project pouch, entirely made by hand, super easy. Just a little bit of thread there. On the side, I've done a little bit of a ladder stitch, but I've left that poking out so that it just adds a little feature to it. Tell me what you think. Do you think a kit for that would be good? Because I'll have to print up a pattern. I always professionally print. So is it worth doing? Would people be interested in that? Super simple, easy project. Tell me what you think. This morning, I have made a Utah block. I think this is the first one I've made in maybe 18 months. It's a hand piece and I've just kind of finger pressed, so it's not looking great. I don't have an iron. It's a hand pressed block. If I caught that there, or is that just creased? I think that will press out, thank goodness. It's the first hand piecing I ever started doing, not this morning, but when I started doing it, I don't know why I chose this block. It's actually quite hard. It's a Jen Kingwell Tempter block called the Utah block. I'm making a Utah quilt. So I'm over halfway of the blocks, but this one took me about 2 hours this morning. So each of those blocks takes a while, and the fabric was cut out for that. I have one more with me that's cut out and I'll try to put together before I get home. And then I think I've got like 25 or so more to make, maybe 30. I think I'm making 64 in total, 8 by 8, 8 blocks by 8 blocks. And I might actually put a border around it. I'm not sure. They're slightly wonky. They're slightly beautiful. Because it was a Jen Kingwell kind of project and I was really inspired. I saw hers. I think she's only done 4 blocks, but, at her beautiful shop, Amity, in Torquay, Australia, in Victoria. I've used a similar colour palette, which is muddy. This is a muddy colour palette for me. The green is quite bright, but most of the colours have that kind of muddy element. And the Capel and this black one are repeating prints in each of the blocks, but I can't show you any more of them because I don't have any put together here. Second last project, I had I've already pieced all the stars from my vintage star quilt, and I had the exterior pieces cut for 4 blocks. Now these blocks are super fun to put together and they're super easy comparatively to this block. I would have absolutely put lots of those together, except I didn't have time before leaving to cut any more of the exterior. So 4 it is. I think I've got maybe 16 or so more to cut the exterior and put on. And I'm going to try and finish that towards the start of next year because I want to get that quilt top together. It's really pretty. Lots of fabrics from my shop. In fact, looking at that, maybe all of those fabrics are from my shop. I think there are some from my stash, but, you know, mostly from the shop. And sorry, when I say Vintage Stars quilt, it's a pattern by Everyday Quilts, who's an Australian pattern designer, and she's lovely. And then last but not least is I have worked on, and I think finished, my piece that I started in Fleur Wood's workshop just before we moved to our new shop. So if you follow Fleur, and you definitely should, on Instagram, she has shared her beautiful work, and she was making it while she was in Newcastle. And she had this piece of tablecloth, which I recognised as something that I had as well in my stash of beautiful vintage textiles. And I just blatantly copied what she has done with that, mostly. So just, let me try and get it to focus. Like stitched into it over the top in very similar colours to what was underneath. And when you get up close, well, it still looks good up close actually. But I, you know, it's just what was there. I've stitched into it with those colours. I have added some beading into mine. Beading in here, beading up here on this one. And then just worked the leaves as well around it. I used Fleur at the course with the textiles she brought for the students to use. She had this, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's very odd. I thought it was awful when I first saw it, and then I noticed it in her work, and I thought, well, why not challenge myself to do something outside of my comfort zone? So I've added some bits in, and I really like it. There's one piece over here and one piece here. Now I have, like, it was quite bouncy, so I've kind of stitched into all the bits to kind of like reduce its volume, I guess. And I've added beading and stitching in the blocks and like just all sorts of different things in both the pieces that were there. Then on top of that, sorry, I hope you don't get seasick, I chose, this was off a tray cloth that was in the shop for sale actually, one of my things that I was selling, and I grabbed it out of my for sale basket and cut it up and attached it on here, these beautiful orange and green flowers. So part of it up here and part of it down here. I also added in, these are Anna Maria Horner flowers that I have just kind of thread painted in the colours that were underneath, and then I have beaded up the centre of those. And here I've added an extra leaf, which actually came from that rose up there. So thread painted that as well, and then just kind of done lots of background. Now with this, I am thinking, you know, this is heavily, heavily inspired by Fleur. Very different to kind of my textile collages that I would call my style. And I might show when I'm home mine against this, because this is me taking a lot of inspiration from a beautiful artist. So I am going to float frame this with some of the blanket and some of these like edges, like probably about here. This blanket is clean, but it's got staining on it. So I want to get rid of that bit, hopefully. And I quite like how much work has been put into this cloth, makes it really wonky. So this is what the back of my work looks like. Just a mess, a riot of colour, and I kind of love the back of it. I know embroiderers that are very strict on rules would just find this appalling, but to me, not appalling. So there's my work, and I'll turn you around just to do an outro for my Japan travels. So I hope you've liked following along our family holiday in Japan. I've had some time for stitching while we were traveling or at night. And while we've been in the Secco, I've done a bit of stitching as well. Look at that snow out there. Is that not just amazing? But thank you for being here. I hope you've liked seeing what I've stitched during my Japan trip. I hope you've liked the travels. Cannot wait to show you the haul when I get home. Bye, YouTube. Happy stitching.